Hi everyone, my name's Adam and I'm going to take you through a guide to the importance of first aid in the workplace. Let's start by looking at what first aid is and a simple definition. The Collins English Dictionary defines first aid as simple medical treatment given as soon as possible to a person who is injured or who suddenly becomes ill. First aid can save lives and prevent minor injuries from becoming major ones. First aid provision in the workplace covers the arrangements that need to be made to manage injuries or illness suffered at work. Let's begin with a look at why first aid training is important in the workplace. First of all, your workplace will be safer. First aid education always stresses the importance of practicing safety to prevent accidents and emergencies from occurring in the first place. An increased safety consciousness helps your employees to work more carefully and to avoid accidents. This directly makes the workplace a lot safer. Let's examine the legal requirements around first aid at work. The Health and Safety (First Aid) Regulations of 1981 require employers to provide adequate and appropriate equipment, facilities and personnel to ensure that their employees receive immediate attention if they are injured or taken ill at work. These regulations apply to all workplaces, including those with fewer than 5 employees and to the self-employed. Employers have a legal duty to plan to make sure that their employees receive immediate attention if they are injured or taken ill at work. It doesn't matter whether the injury or illness is caused by the work that they do. What is important is that they receive immediate attention and that an ambulance is called in serious cases. The regulations do not prevent staff who have been specially trained from taking action beyond the initial management stage. Next, we'll move on to the duties that you have as an employer. You must make appropriate first aid arrangements for your workplace. To do this, you must undertake a first aid needs assessment. This should consider the circumstances of your workplace, workforce, and the hazards and risks that may be present. You need to consider the following. First of all, your workplace. The kinds of things you need to consider include: do you occupy more than one building? Do you have appropriate first aid equipment in all buildings? Do any employees work alone? Do members of the public visit your premises? And are there parts of your workforce with different levels of risk? For example, warehouse staff. Next, move on to the workforce. When thinking about first aid and your employees, think about specific risks in different roles, whether or not dangerous machinery or hazardous materials are used, the frequency of accidents in the workplace, whether you have any inexperienced staff, and whether you have employees with disabilities or specific health issues, and when there are times that first aiders may be absent. The findings of your needs assessment should indicate the level of first aid equipment, facilities and personnel that are required. As a minimum, you should have a suitably stocked first aid kit, an appointed person to take charge of first aid arrangements, and information for all employees giving details of first aid arrangements. Where your needs assessment identifies workplace or workforce issues or more significant health and safety risks, you are likely to need a sufficient number of appropriately trained first aiders and may need to arrange additional equipment and facilities. Next, let's take a look at the first aid kit itself. The contents will depend on the type of work that's being done. For example, where work activities involve low hazards, a minimum stock of first aid items might be a leaflet that gives general guidance on first aid, individually wrapped sterile plasters in assorted sizes which can be hypoallergenic if necessary, sterile iPads, individually wrapped triangular bandages, preferably sterile, safety pins, a variety of sterile, individually wrapped, unmedicated wound dressings, and disposable gloves. Finally, let's take a look at the process for choosing an appointed person or first aider. All organisations need to appoint someone to take charge of first aid arrangements in the workplace. Your needs assessment will determine if this needs to be an appointed person or a first aider. If you're wondering about the difference between an appointed person or a first aider, an appointed person is nominated to take charge of first aid arrangements, such as looking after the first aid kit and calling an ambulance in an emergency. A first aider is qualified to give first aid treatment in the event of an injury or illness. Whether your needs assessment identifies that you need an appointed person or first aider, there are similar questions you should ask yourself when choosing someone to fulfill those roles. Firstly, willingness. Is this something the person can enjoy and take pride in? The personality. Are they calm and confident enough to cope in an emergency? Reliability. Will they be available and easily reachable in a crisis? And ability. Are they physically able to carry out the procedures? Whoever you choose, you must ensure that they have the time, authority and support to undertake their duties. Here at Citation, we offer First Aid at Work training with a one-day course that offers practical and theoretical training in basic life-saving first aid. At the end of the course, your employees will be trained to act as emergency first aiders in their workplace.